Hi everybody, Dan here. This PowerPoint is from the publisher, and I think it has some good points. Although I do think PowerPoint is often abused, when it does work well, it does help in these three areas: improving listener memory, speeding comprehension, and adding to your credibility. If you look at this graph, you'll see that without visual aids, only 10% of what you say, according to this study, will be remembered after 3 days. However, with good visual aids, that number rises to 85%. Pretty dramatic increase. The publisher warns against using videos. I'll do more than that. Please, no videos in your PowerPoint. But I often see this in my on-ground classes. Students want videos to speak for them rather than they having to do the presentation. So I don't allow videos under any circumstances. But let's say you do have a chance to embed a video in a presentation. It is risky because time and time again I've seen videos fail to play. When it comes to sound effects, I discourage my students from using them because I think they're distracting. But the publisher here says if you do use them sparingly. I've mentioned this, you don't want a video to do your talking for you, and that is the attraction for many students for including a video. Remember, when you do PowerPoint, you are the show and you want to maintain contact with your audience. And you want to talk to your audience, not defer to your slides. So you need a light. You want to make sure you can be seen. Also, you want to give transition to the next slide. So for example, I know what the next slide is going to be. So I can say something like, now look, when you use props, and there I go. See, I have a title page regarding props. Make any objects or props that you have large enough to be seen, and yet small enough to be easily displayed. If you're trying to bring in a cello bass fiddle, and you're trying to wrestle that up to the podium, it could be very distracting. You want to wait, I've said this many times, until the end of your presentation before you hand out any kind of copies. Otherwise, you're going to lose your audience. Here are some mistakes that the publisher has done surveys about, and I've added the first one. This is a mistake that I have seen over the years. Presenters firing up their computer when the projector is on. For one thing, it's very distracting. Sometimes it can be very embarrassing. I've seen people fire up laptops and then have images appear on the screen that they would have preferred never appeared. So it was very embarrassing for the speaker, and the speaker said it wasn't his laptop. Maybe it wasn't. But what I'm saying is, if at all possible, you don't want to turn your computer on, and you don't want to open your PowerPoint when the projector is on, because the audience can see the number of slides on the left-hand bottom corner. And you don't want to reveal the length of your presentation to the audience, because they'll start doing the math, and they'll start to groan internally. We're going to be here all night when they see there's 100 slides that you have to go through, and maybe you're going to go through them very rapidly. Okay, here are the results from the studies from the publisher. Reading off of the slide, 62% of respondents confess to reading off of the slides. What about this? The text is too small to read for the audience. Remember, when you do your PowerPoint, when you design it, you're 15 inches away from the screen. Everything looks good. But people in the back of the room, when they see it on the projector or on the screen projected, cannot read font that was so easy for you to read at 15 inches. Text color, hard to read. How many times have you been to a website where you couldn't read the text because it clashed with the background color? Complete sentences. This is a common mistake. 39% of people responded to this. If you have complete sentences, you are going to read them. And reading your PowerPoint is the kiss of death for the presentation. Nobody can retain the information if you read it and they simultaneously look at it. Studies have proven that. Too much motion, too much animation, too much activity is a distraction. And charts being too complex. Here's an example of that. Now look, I just made a transition from this last bullet point to this. Let's say you're giving a presentation on how sales have taken a downturn, and you'll see the chart on the left is preferable to the chart on the right because look, you're talking about sales. You're not talking about earnings and dividends. This is irrelevant to your message. So you want to keep it as simple as you can. Here's another example of that. Let's say you're talking about energy costs for your corporation. Well, you're talking about energy costs, and you want to put it in perspective to other expenses. This is fine. You don't have to, if you look on the right, you don't have to go into these details. These all add up to other expenses. So keep it simple, because your main focus is this, in the green, energy costs. If you have a bar chart, this is something I never thought about, but the publisher is suggesting that the bars be wider than the spaces in between. You'll see the spaces in between are wider than the bars here, but here they're not. I never thought of this. You can let me know if you think it looks better. I think it does look better, but not that much better, at least to me. Here is a slide full of text. Not bad. These are bullet points. There are no sentences, so I don't object to the text. But how could you improve this visual? By simply adding a graphic. You see the difference between this and this? Now, when it comes to the benefits of using color, studies have shown that color visuals are more persuasive. That's why so many ads are in color. Color also apparently adds dimension, and that may come in handy depending on what it is you want to illustrate. Colors definitely do produce an emotional response, and they do add contrast. Sometimes too much contrast, so we have to be careful. When we select color, we want to make sure that they don't look the same at a distance. Remember, when you design your PowerPoint, you're 15 inches away from the laptop screen. People in the back of the room, however, can be bedazzled by the color, where everything looks the same. You want to limit the colors you use so they aren't a distraction. And if you'll spend some time later studying this wheel, you'll see that you don't want to use colors on the opposite sides of the wheel next to each other. Always remember that you are the show, not PowerPoint. You are the magician. PowerPoint is the magician's assistant. Now look, I want to give you a heads up. Next week, I'm going to ask all of you to watch a 20-minute video on designing a PowerPoint. I know many of you think you already are experts on designing a PowerPoint. I want to expose you to a different alternative opinion. And more than that, I'm going to challenge all of you and ask each of you to follow the directions of that speaker as you prepare your PowerPoint for the informative presentation. That PowerPoint will be sent to me separately on week 6. Don't worry, you'll get plenty of information on this. This is just a heads up. And then your actual informative presentation will be sent to me separately on week 7, all through the assignment format. Now that assignment for a presentation is normally 100 points. I'm going to break it up into 80-20. 20 points for the PowerPoint, which will be sent to me separately, and 80 points for the presentation, which will be recorded by a friend or family member. In other words, it will not be a webcam presentation. All of this will be explained thoroughly. This is just a heads up since I'm talking about PowerPoint. Okay, everybody, thanks for your attention, and I'll see you on the next screencast. Bye.